Welcome back to Reimagine 2021. I'm Yonah Hochhauser, and today it's an honor to speak to Luis Cuende, co-founder of Aragon. Luis, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, it's really great to speak to you. I love speaking to creators, people who are really helping with the innovation and the development in the space. This is a brand new technology, blockchain as a whole, crypto even specifically. And so it really is, a pleasure to speak to people who are really doing their best to push it forwards. And I think you exemplified that perfectly. Now, this is a conference of the history of coins. That's the theme of this one. So I want to start off, first question to you. How did you first hear about Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I heard about Bitcoin actually when it was published on Hacker News in 2009. And then I jumped into it and I was like, wow, there's a huge scam. Like, there's no way this works. Like, technically, it just doesn't make sense. And then in 2011, I read about it again, and then I actually read the white paper, and then I was like, Luis, you're stupid. Of course this thing works. Like, of course, like, the most kind of unique technological advancement of the center probably. So yeah, I guess, first time you look at everything, it looks like a scam. But then I am deeper into it, and wow, I was blown away.
Yeah, and I think that's for a lot of people. When I first heard about it too, I was like, what is this, like internet money? This can't be real. But the white paper really spells it out. It's pretty straightforward. And even if you don't have a technical background, it's pretty easy to understand them, except some of the parts where the formulas. But other than that, it's pretty easy to understand. And I think that's what convinced a lot of people. So I'm sure you were kicking yourself when you realized in 2011. I wish you probably would have thought you bought in 2009. But that was 2011. You get into it. And then from there, do you continue on Bitcoin or developing the space? What did you think of Bitcoin? Was it like, oh, this could actually be the future of money? Or was this, I could see this is actually a pretty good system. I could see this being used for online transactions.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was always about the currency itself. The technology was very interesting, but it was more about this thing kind of really free people from banks. That was kind of my obsession because, coming from Spain, we had a huge real estate crisis, I guess, similar to a lot of countries, but Spain got hit really hard. And so I suffered the pain of almost getting kicked out of my home by banks. And so that was not a pleasure experience. And so I was trying to look for ways that you can basically something very simple, you can basically make people be able to work without spending 40, 50 years of their life working for banks, which is what's, in my opinion, is happening now. So you have these people that just control the financial system, right? And if they control the financial system, they go and print more money, which effectively what it does is just dilutes the amount of 40, 50 years you've been working on stuff, and it makes it worthless. You need to work more. You need to keep in the rat race. And so if you think about the 80s, that dream of a utopian future where machines will work for us, and we could just sit back and relax and be creative, which is what humans are for, that dream has been sent directly to the trash bin. We are working more than back then. And so I just think we really need to go back to it. And the way to do it is, well, there are many components, but sovereign money is just one of them. And it's a very important one.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I think most people would agree that Bitcoin was a huge step or first step in that journey. Another big push was the Ethereum white paper and the launch of Ethereum that added the smart contract functionality on top of that. What was your thoughts when you read the Ethereum white paper compared to the Bitcoin white paper?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same, but it was very similar. It was this thing is a scam. And then again, 2 years after, I actually jumped into it and I checked it out in a more deeper fashion, and then I realized it was huge. But yeah, back in the day, I was kind of a Bitcoin maximalist, and so reading about Ethereum, I was I don't know if this thing is gonna work. But then when you actually read about the use cases and implications, and I think that was 2015, 2016, I was just blown away by just the amount of things you can build in a truly decentralized internet, and it changed my view completely. I'm not an Ethereum maximalist either. I've learned my lesson. I'm just not maximalist all around. But I think Ethereum is mind-blowing.
I mean, for sure, it holds such great promise. This idea of a world computer, this idea of being able of taking that same ideological reason you said about Bitcoin, and decentralizing power, decentralizing money, and then Ethereum allows for kind of this really putting functionality to that, really putting it into practice. I'm not a maximalist of anything either. Whatever works the best, and there's constant innovation, and tomorrow, who knows what we'll bring. So, but right now we're about 10, 11 years post the launch of Bitcoin, a little less than that for Ethereum. And so far today, who do you think has done a better job of accomplishing their goals? And the goals, could be dependent on who you ask. But in your mind, today, who has done a better job of actually, over the time that it existed, accomplishing their goals that they set out to?
Well, I think Bitcoin, and I think the answer is pretty simple. Like you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum. Well, of course, at Bitcoin launched before, but the goal of Bitcoin is actually, I would say, quite ambitious, but at the same time quite simple. Like Bitcoin just needs to be a good store of value, and it does that through being just a very, very simple, almost dumb cryptocurrency. Like if you compare that, the complexity of Bitcoin to the one on Ethereum, it's so different. Like Ethereum is much more complex, and so the goal that Ethereum has set out to do is extremely ambitious, but it's way more complex. And so I think it will take more time. And it faces a lot of issues like scalability. Bitcoin also had those issues, but it solved them very, very simply by switching from the money narrative to the store of value narrative. And right now, what Bitcoin is doing is mind blowing. Like companies are just adding it to their like treasuries. It's like a matter of time for governments to do the same. And then it's like the world, like treasury store of value. So like, and I think it's gonna take probably 2-3 years for that to happen, honestly, and for it to surpass the market cap of gold, and that is mind blowing. I think for Ethereum, it will take a little bit more just because there's more technical complexity.
Well, one of the things that made you fall in love with Bitcoin in the beginning was this idea of getting people away from under the thumbs of the banks, and being able to really have control and financial freedom. Does the switch from money and transactional money to store of value, does that affect that dream at all?
I don't think it does. Like I actually think it's even better because money is something that like it needs to flow for the economy to work very well. And a store of value is something that you actually, it's kind of like works the other way around. Like it needs to just stay in the same hands. And it also moves over time, of course, but like for it to appreciate, you need to hold it, right? And so I think in that sense, the fact that we can have a truly permissionless store of value is much more important than having like the permissionless money, just because like you think about like, again, countries or like, people in nations like Argentina, where their currency is completely like devaluating all year, they're able to just hold Bitcoin, long term. And if they do that for like 10, 20 years, they have their retirement sorted out. And that is huge.
Yeah, at the rate that Bitcoin's rising, it's not 10, 20 years. In like 2 years, they're going to be able to retire. Let's hope, fingers crossed. But and yeah, 100%. I think that has been the best real world use cases. I mean, we're always talking about, look at PayPal bought it as a reserve currency and MicroStrategy, but for many years now, a lot of countries in Latin America and any other place in the world that has been facing local currency inflation, currency restrictions, they've been using Bitcoin already as an amazing use case of protecting themselves against their local currency value fluctuations. And I think that doesn't get enough coverage, at least in the English-speaking world, because it really is incredible to see that dream coming to reality. Now, you mentioned with Ethereum, that Ethereum does have some issues. It has tremendous potential, but it in its current infrastructure form, it has reached that potential in terms of scalability. If you are, a small-time trader not doing big trades, it's essentially a useless. You cannot transact in it. The transaction fees are too high. The gas fees are too high right now. But for so long, they've been promising Ethereum 2.0, moving over to proof of stake, and that has been going slowly. They launched a beacon chain, and they launched a staking contract. When are we going to actually see, in your view, ETH 2.0 active, and that's the chain that people are going to be actually developing on and utilizing?
Yeah, it's a really hard question to answer because there is so much uncertainty. Like if you think about Ethereum 2.0, it's a completely different chain to Ethereum. Like you're gonna have to probably redevelop and re-architect most of the software that runs today on Ethereum. So that alone will take some time. So like, for us, for example, like it took us, I think, like a year to like get everything production ready and audit everything to make sure it's completely died. And so if you add that to the fact that like you have to maintain both like a version on Ethereum 1 and also like a version on Ethereum 2, like I think it's gonna take a while. Right now, for example, with the Bitcoin chain, like you cannot have smart contracts, for example. It's a very like simple chain. So for that, would probably take another year for it to have some smart contract support. So I give it 2-3 years until we see like something fully fledged. And that's okay, I think. Like in the meantime, we can use L2 solutions, layer 2 solutions on Ethereum 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and part of the reason that Ethereum has been hitting that scaling limit has been the popularity and the rise of DeFi, decentralized finance. That does seem to be the main or major use case transacting right now on Ethereum. First, those crypto kitties, that was cute. That bogged down the network to some cute little kitties. But since then, recently and since the summer of 2020, it's really been DeFi. And I wanted to get your thoughts on DeFi, because so much of what we've been speaking about so far, which is this independence from banks, this financial independence. DeFi conceptually holds this idea. DeFi, you think about the idea of DeFi, and the first time I heard about it was great. This is take the banking services and give it to the community. Make it, I need a loan. The bank says no, I go to the community. But so far, it seems like what we've seen from DeFi has been more focused, yield farming, liquidity providing, seemingly more. You need to have capital to really take advantage. You need to be very knowledgeable in this space to take advantage. Has DeFi in its current form, or does DeFi in its current form serve the purpose of truly decentralizing finances to the masses, or are we not there yet?
Well, in its current form, I think like with current Ethereum gas prices, you have to really deal with a lot of money to be able to trade, right? And so most people don't have that kind of money to be able to trade and pay $500 in a trade fee. So probably not. The thing here is that a lot of things are actually and this is where it gets kind of hairy. We have the same problem at Aragon. Right now, operating decentralized organizations is extremely expensive. But it's also an Ethereum problem, right? Because for us, gas price changed from 2 to 2000 now. And so what do you do, right? Just everything breaks, your assumptions completely break. So it's kind of an issue, and I think we as an industry have to work on layer 2 solutions ASAP.
Right, and so let's use Aragon as an example. You co-founded it, and you're a core contributor over there. Just give our audience a quick rundown of what Aragon does.
Sure. So yeah, the way I like to put it is the same way that Bitcoin is kind of disintermediating money, Aragon is disintermediating organizations. And so the idea is you can create these new organizations, these decentralized autonomous organizations that basically live on the internet and that are much more open and fluid. So basically anyone can join them, participate, contribute when they want, and then exit from them if they want as well. And so a lot of these DAOs today, for example, are DeFi protocols, right? Who need to decentralize themselves, because otherwise, if they are run by a single authority, they are not decentralized and kind of reaches the point. So what they do is they get ownership to their token holders, and then token holders can vote and can make proposals on the future of the protocol. And so we are seeing kind of that explosion of a lot of decentralized organizations we created for a lot of these use cases.
And I think the explosion, especially in the DeFi space with the governance tokens, it seems like SushiSwap was the one who first gave out or really caused that, because they needed to have an advantage or offer something over Uniswap. Essentially, they were just copying them, but they offered the governance token. Then Uniswap had to match. Now, seemingly everyone has to have a governance token. But DAOs as a concept, let's talk about DAOs as a concept, decentralized, autonomous organizations. These things, they hold so much promise. This is, once again, another idea for your talks. You said Bitcoin was decentralizing money, and DeFi is decentralizing kind of financial services. DAOs are decentralizing governance. And that does sound, out of all the things that, because, to most of us, our idea of, or the best example of people having power in our world is a democracy, is people voting on governance. Most people don't have any other example of decentralized money or decentralized finance, but people could understand democracy. And so do you think that's what helps DAOs or makes DAOs easier to understand for newcomers, because they have a frame of reference of, oh, I get what that is?
Yeah, definitely. Although democracy these days is also in a very kind of like, sorry state, because of everything that has happened in the world. Actually, one of the triggers for us to create Aragon in the first place was when Donald Trump won the elections in the US, because that was a sign that like democracy was falling very quickly. But yeah, I think that makes people like kind of like realize faster. The other thing that right now makes people realize faster their need for decentralized governance is like seeing all of these huge like tech monopolies that are essentially running things that are kind of public goods. Like if you think about Google, for example, a search engine, like it's almost like a public good, right? It probably shouldn't be owned by a company that can do whatever it wants with it. So people are like very fast, very quickly, like getting the value for decentralized governance now.
Mm-hmm. And right now it's still such a new technology, but once it gets to the point where DAOs have proven themselves as a technology, can you see a future where there could actually be a nation state government actually run by a DAO?
Yeah, that is the end goal. I think like you think about competition. Competition is very healthy, right? Like competition makes makes companies and entities create better products. And you think about nation states, they just don't have competition. Like they have their own kind of like cartel, and that's kind of it. Like you cannot create a new nation state, and that threatens innovation a lot, and that makes just kind of like competition lag behind. And so the day you can create a nation state, that is gonna be incredible. You kind of can do that today, to be honest, just without land. You can create a community. You can create a community that has like shared financial incentives. You can create a community that has everything on internet that has except for land. And so that's an interesting start.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see. And kind of like what you touched upon, some could argue those big tech companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google are essentially their own form of nation state without land, although they do own tremendous amounts of real estate around the world. But the amount of political sway, they have more money, they have a bigger GDP than most countries. So it kind of blurs the line now with technology. We kind of take it for granted, but the connectiveness that even traditional technology allows us to do has already created these giant organizations, just not that decentralized. And here's the hoping that DAOs do enable that. Now, DAOs, the comment, they hold a lot of promise, and they really seem like a wonderful endeavor. What are DAOs especially good at?
I would say, so I will start with the things that DAOs are not like extremely good at, and so that is acting fast. And yeah, that is just a function of consensus. Like you need more consensus, you need more kind of like, voting processes. So like they're not good at that, but they are very good at reaching scale. So like if you need to coordinate, 10,000 people all around the world that are like distributed, and you need to coordinate them to do some work, then it's probably a very good mechanism, because then you can like reach a scale that you just can't reach in a company. Like, scaling a company to 10,000 people, it's a very hard endeavor. Doing that with a DAO, it's pretty straightforward. Like you just give a bunch of people tokens, you give some bounties out there, you have some, and there's kind of like an area of active research, like some kind of like KPIs that they have to meet. And if they meet, they get like a reward. And then people self-organize and just like get stuff done.
And what about the idea if the goal is to really have this decentralized organization, kind of spreading out the power as much as possible? Right now, at least with DeFi, a lot of the governance tokens are given out with these liquidity incentives and yield farming, where pretty much the people who already have or holding tokens or have capital, they're the ones getting tokens. Or even a step further, if you're a venture capital firm where you have a lot of capital, if you want to have a bigger say in these DAOs, you could essentially buy up a large portion of these governance tokens. So if one, is that a bad thing? And two, if it is, what can we do to ensure as spread of power as possible?
Yeah, I have never seen that as like inherently a bad thing. It's very similar to like shareholder governance. And shareholder governance is great in the sense that like people that have more skin in the game have more shares, and people who have more shares have more skin in the game. So I think that is great. The issue comes when that is extremely concentrated, right? Like let's say you have a protocol that is effectively controlled by like 5 people or 5 entities, then it's not really decentralized anymore. And so I think there, like we can do a few things, but I think like it's still a very unsolved problem. Like people are working on basically one person, one vote kind of mechanisms, right? There are still very much in like research state, because it's very hard to prove that one person is like one unique person on the blockchain. But yeah, there's still like active research. My take on it is that it's a step forward compared to like typical shareholder governance, because in typical shareholder governance, you have like a bunch of other intermediaries for you to actually become a shareholder. Here you can use like, go to Uniswap, grab some tokens and become one. So I think that helps.
And I think before DAOs or historically, even in online communities, there was feedback from the community. Developers would ask, or the community, or speak to the community, and the community would give suggestions, but nothing talks like money. And that's, I think, one of the powers of the DAO, that many DAOs control the treasuries, that they dictate where funding goes. And at the end of the day, that actually decides, that has the most power over direction of protocols. Have we seen it so far in your view? Have we seen it working? Have we seen that DAOs, for the most part, have done a good job of actually having the power to both direct the direction of protocols and decisions? And have they been good at it? Have the decisions they made as an overall, I know this is a general question, but as an overall, has in practice it worked out as well as you thought conceptually?
Well, if you ask me what I thought in like 2017, I would tell you that right now I thought DAOs would be like almost like governing everything all over the world, and like dethroning dictators and like solving world hunger. We haven't gotten there yet, unfortunately. But if you think about like protocols like DeFi protocols, for example, a lot of their growth has been attributed to just having DAOs and having people like govern their protocols. And that has worked out very well. Like, you have a bunch of like DeFi protocols, like Abbott Compound or Uniswap, that have grown their management tremendously. And that has been due to communities and has been due to DAOs.
And yeah, once again, we must preface this. It's such a new technology. It's we understand the value of it and the potential for it, but we can't really blame the masses, because you go to most people on the street, they have no idea what a DAO is. They so maybe they think it's a mantra for when you're meditating or something. A DAO, no one really knows. But so do you think we have to do a better job as a community of pushing out and explaining and educating the masses about DAOs? Because everyone's already telling their the grandmothers about Bitcoin and about this idea of cryptocurrency, maybe DeFi, although that's still pretty new. But I feel like DAOs, they don't even get spoken about in the mainstream media.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should talk more about them, just because they are like so important for the development of the space. Like if you have like a DeFi protocol that is not decentralized, then what is it, right? I think it's just very hard to explain, because it's a different paradigm of how we organize. So like if today most entities are companies, for example, like 100 years from now, we will not know what they are. But probably 20 years from now, 10 years from now, they will be DAOs. And so it's a like new paradigm. Imagine explaining to someone like what a company was before a company was invented, right? It's very hard to explain.
And let's say that we were able to explain it to every single person on Earth, and they're like, wow, we like this, we love DAOs, I want to be a part of one, I want to vote, I want to be active, I want to have control. Is the user experience there yet today, even if they wanted to, for the average person who's not crypto savvy? Is it there that they actually are able, they'll be able to interact with it? Is it clear? Is the voting mechanism easy enough to understand? Is it easy enough to get your coins in and out and your governance tokens around? I mean, is it there, or is still even the technology and the interaction a barrier to DAOs?
Yeah, there's definitely a very high barrier. Like we have tried to do the user experience in Aragon like as smooth as possible, but even with that, you have a bunch of other things like owning a token, right, which is like out of our reach, or just interacting with Ethereum. And so I think there's a long way to go. One thing that I'm very excited about, though, is basically integrating the DAO experience into something like Telegram or like like a messaging app, because then like you join it and then you like vote with like emojis or something like that, and then you don't have to even know what a DAO is. You don't have to interact with the token. So I think that would be the ideal scenario for me, where we just like go where the users are, like billions of users in instant messaging, billions of users in social networking, and we just like give them the tools to like supercharge the communities.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you see a future where the DAOs are actually controlled through just regular third-party platforms like Telegram or it could be WhatsApp, Facebook, it really could be anything, but just as long as you integrate that within the DAO, and that's how people will interact with the DAO?
Yeah, definitely. Just make technology invisible, like that is a way of organizing, right? So like the more invisible it is, if it allows people to organize without like having to interact with any like UI in the middle, that's even better.
And then, so far we've been speaking about DAOs, and I want to go back a little bit to DeFi. When we're looking at the DeFi space, I mean, it's so crazy. It's really like, every single day there's a new innovation. If I would have spoken to you about, 6 months ago, you would have been on Uniswap, and I would have spoken to you 4 months ago. You're like, who use Yoni? I use Sushi. And then now you can't use any of those. I use Pancake. So it really is so crazy. It moves so fast. The innovation is so quick. But so far right now, when you're looking at the DeFi space, and there's tons of great projects out there, but as a developer yourself, and as someone who really understands the work and effort it takes to, and it's a tremendous amount of work and effort, I'm sure you well know, to make these things work and make them come to life. Which is the project that you look at in the DeFi space that you're most impressed with?
Well, I'm super impressed by the execution of Aave. Like these guys have been just like crushing it over the course of the last months. Like they also they are like, to me, they are quite interesting because they survived the 2017, 2018 kind of like wave. Like we actually got to start Aragon and Aave like at very similar times. And I know how hard it is to stay relevant in crypto after a whole bull run and then a bear market. Like, it's just very hard to stay relevant. And these guys have not only like stayed relevant, but also like just crushed it. So yeah, props to them.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing, because when there's the bull market like we're in now, there's so much hype going on. There's so much talk. There's so much focus on us. Do you think though that in the bear markets, in the kind of the crypto winters where it's quiet, that actually gives developers a better environment to actually develop, to just block out the noise and just focus on the technology?
It does, but at the same time, it's quite depressing as well, because like you said, like for years and years, you don't have any kind of like validation, and then it all kind of like comes at once. So yeah, it's like humans are not programmed for that. Like we are programmed for like doing something and then receiving like a positive or negative like a stimuli, but not programmed for like doing something and then 3 years after receiving like a huge span of attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of getting that reward feedback, you know it well. You're really accomplished. You run 30 under 30, tons of awards and accolades, for your accomplishments and your brilliance, and yet you chose to work or to develop and to contribute in a pretty small niche. In the blockchain and within the blockchain and crypto, within specifically DAOs. Why did you? You had the whole world open. You could have really done anything. Why did you choose to focus your talent specifically on this?
Well, I love crypto. I think crypto is the most like world-changing technology we've seen in terms of like transferring power for those like crooked politicians and individuals that have like held on to it for decades. And we can finally like transfer that power to people that are gonna like hopefully be like more forward-looking technologists, more open-minded, and just to communities in general and to the world in general. And so within that, I thought, Bitcoin is doing a great job at what it is doing, obviously. And so I think we have to work on tools for human organization and for like, for the next thing that comes after companies. And so that's why I chose to work on decentralized governance.
And, as an end user, I'm not a developer, but as an end user, so I only see what the developers are creating or putting out there. I mean, I'm always, and as an end user, we want better user experience. We want, faster, cheaper, better. But as a developer yourself, do you think that there's enough work in the space being done to develop developer tools and make the lives of developers easier?
Oof, yeah, we're still a long way from there, I guess. Like if you're a Web2 developer, which like most people are Web2 developers, they know like JavaScript and a couple other things, and you come into Ethereum, you're gonna be like, whoa, like what is this thing here? I know people like Solidity developers. I'm not a Solidity developer myself, but they have been not very happy with the language for some time. So yeah, there's still so much work to do in terms of like developer tooling.
And do you think that like as an end user will feel that like once once there is, you know, a easier and more efficient language built or things on the back end for the developer side, that's really what's gonna give that push, and we're gonna see an explosion of actually improvements on the end user side because of the improvements on the developer side?
Yeah, I think so. Like, you know, the more like room developers have to play, to experiment, and to create like more kind of like solid applications, like the better the user experience is going to be. We also need more designers in the space. Like I've been saying this for like years. Like a lot of the products that we use in the space feel very engineered because they are made by engineers, right? And we're using more designers, like more UX designers, also UI to like make it pretty and look good. And we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a problem, obviously, that you deal with on a day-to-day, or, you know, do you think it's tough? Because obviously it's such an exciting space for someone who is a developer. You know, this is the new technology. This is the cutting edge. You're really paving your own path here. Do you think that it's a tougher sell to get design, UX and designers and these people into the space just because of it's so new, it's so unsure? If you're not a developer and you're not in it, you might think it's a little bit scammy. You're so unaware. Do you think it is a tough sell to actually bring in talent from the outside?
Yeah, definitely, especially in bear markets. I think in bull markets, it's pretty easy to get talent from outside. Sometimes not with the right intentions. But yeah, I think like we just have to be a bit more inspirational, I guess. Like sometimes it's not about like, you know, making a more efficient layer 2 algorithm for whatever. Like you have to make it a bit more aspirational. Like, what does this accomplish? Like, does this allow for someone to have a better life, someone else in the world, or like to have more financial security? What is the actual like thing that we are trying to accomplish here? Because otherwise we're just gonna end up building like a huge set of like tools for the crypto rich to get richer, and that's the thing that we want to avoid.
Mm-hmm. And has there been any project so far you felt that has actually done more to help the people rather than just make the crypto rich richer?
Well, so right now, like I think Bitcoin in general has done a pretty good job, just because like if you are, I see now when traveling, I see like a lot of these Bitcoin stores in the streets where you can just go in and buy Bitcoin, and that is pretty mind blowing. Like, you know, even with the huge price swings, if you were like, you know, an Argentinian family or Venezuelan family or whatever, and you managed to buy Bitcoin like, you know, 2-3 years ago, you have already made a lot of money, like life-changing money. So I think Bitcoin has really accomplished, or is really in the path to accomplishing those use cases. I think for Ethereum it's still so early, because it's like people who want to trade or to invest such small amounts, they just can't pay these gas fees right now. So yeah, I think we're still a long way. Even for Aragon, like there have been some interesting use cases. Like when the COVID pandemic started, some people created decentralized organizations to coordinate and create masks or you know, medical equipment and stuff like that. And that was very interesting to see, and that was so like amazing and so beautiful. But at the same time, it's still very small scale.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, but it is incredible the work's being done, and kudos to you and your team, and because I do see that in making a difference. I mean, and that is really incredible to see. Now, I think there's a problem or a problem with perception, at least in the mainstream media and with a lot of us, where for a lot of what's going on in the space, we view it through the lens of the people who are already in power. You know, for instance, you know, how do we attack the banks, and how do we? But at the end of the day, what people don't realize, and you keep on going back to Argentina and all these places that on the ground, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are making a difference. I think a lot of us in the first world and just in better situations don't realize, you know, that some people are less fortunate. You know, people don't realize in Argentina there are capital controls. There's a certain amount, there's a limit of amount of dollars you're allowed to have because the local currency is so volatile that people would all put their money in dollars. You know, people don't realize Bitcoin actually gives an outlet that is unavailable to them. It's not just like, oh, you know, this is just Bitcoin or dollars or gold. No, it's Bitcoin or pretty much nothing, or to stay, you know, stay with the Argentinian money. Because, and so, do you think that the kind of the adoption and the revolution, rather than what many people would assume, would be coming from the top down, and the big money and MicroStrategy and Tesla, then that would eventually trickle down to the poorest people. But do you think in reality, we're going to actually see it be the opposite? It's going to be a bottom up, where the people who really need to use crypto for its use case, not because, hey, I want to have more power and I view a betterment, but because I need it, and this is what I need to survive.
I think we've definitely seen some of that actually with like the early Bitcoin days and drugs. Funnily enough, like a lot of people who were into Bitcoin back in the day were just like trying to buy drugs. You know, they were not kind of like financial magnates who were trying to hedge their way out of the like traditional fiat system. There were people who were just trying to buy drugs. And so it's almost like funny to think about. But at the same time, there is kind of like one quirk about capitalism, and that is that usually the ones who have more capital, like, you know, they're favored by capitalism. And so basically, like, the way it will work here is that if you are in a, like, you know, well-developed nation, and you probably have easier ways to buy crypto, right? And I saw this firsthand. I know people who lived in sanctioned areas, and buying crypto is really hard for them. And these would be people that actually it should be easy for them to buy. Not if you are, like, you know, in the top 1% in the like most developed countries in the world. And like I lived in Switzerland, for example. Switzerland has an amazing crypto infrastructure, like incredible. But if you are there, like, it's not going to be like a life or death thing for you to buy crypto. If you live in a sanctioned territory, it's may probably like change your life. And so we still have a long way to go in there, and it's just one of the like ironies of capitalism.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of the dream and the goal of kind of changing the system, because a lot of people see the current financial system and see a lot of problems with it. You know, we recently saw with the whole you know, Wall Street Bets subreddit, you know, really buying up GameStop and AMC, because it seems to be a lot of anger towards these big institutions. People are saying, like you mentioned, the capitalism favors people with capital, and a lot of people are getting upset with it, and they think it's an unfair system. Do you think that you know, that naturally that movement will move over to crypto and utilize it really to you know, because let's say, how could we fight the battle? If you want to fight the battle against traditional finance, but you're fighting it in the arena of traditional finance, they have the advantage. You know, like we saw with GameStop, you know, Robinhood stopped trading, and as in that was their arena. We were trying to fight there, but they hold the rules. Do you think that, you know, this fight's going to move over to the crypto realm where they don't have control to stop it, and where we have, or it's an even playing field?
Yeah, I think we have to like look for the things that crypto does way better than traditional finance and focus on those. Like there are a bunch of things that are interesting and kind of like native of an open source composable system. Like you think about like synthetic assets, for example. That is very cool. The fact that you can like basically replicate any stock you want on the traditional world, but on chain, without actually like owning the stock. Stuff like Synthetics or UMA is doing. That is quite mind blowing. And so, like, if we can find ways to kind of like exploit the traditional finance system, and also like just attract capital into crypto, that is one thing that is very important, I think, and bull runs are very good at it. Like, just get capital from the old system to the new one, and then when there's capital into the new one, then you can use it via DAOs. You can use it via, you know, different development teams to fund development and to create more tools. And so I think that is actually happening. Like, if you look at like 2017, for example, 2018, there was a lot of obviously talk about ICOs, but at the same time, like, there were a few of them that have done wonderful things, right? And so that was just like the cycle and how it works. And same thing happens now. Like, a lot of capital has been attracted by DeFi projects. Some of them will get scams, but some of them will actually create very helpful kind of like pieces of infrastructure. And so if we repeat that for a few times, this cycle a few times, then like we may have more capital into crypto, into this like global crypto settlement layer than a traditional system. And we might see this happening like 10 years, 20 years. Like, you know, it all happens very slowly, and then it happens at once.
And that's that tipping point. You know, and that is very exciting. And it's exciting because, you know, you've been following the space for a long time, and so have I. And for so long, we were waiting for the when. You know, when is the big money to come in? When's the institutions going to come in? When are we going to get that? You know, when the moon? You know, we're at $50,000. I mean, if you would have told any of us 4 years ago, that's the moon, and we're here, and we want more, and we want more, and it's amazing to see the growth. We're at around $50,000 right now. Are we even halfway there? Where is this going to end? Is the sky's the limit for price and for where this reaches?
Well, I mean, sky is sadly never the limit. Like when you think the sky is the limit, then like things tend to come down again. Like, you know, I think we're still we haven't reached like the tipping point yet in terms of price that will trigger a bear market. Like I think there is still a lot of bull market remaining. Like I think for me personally, like I want to see Bitcoin at 100K, and I don't have a lot of doubts that is going to happen, just because like if you think about companies adding it to their treasuries, it's like mind blowing. Like, you know, the wealthiest person on earth is now a Bitcoin and a crypto advocate, Elon, and so that is just huge. Like I can't even think on describe how big that is for crypto and for Bitcoin specifically. And so I think we're still a long way to go. I remember 2017, 2018, like when it gets really ridiculous, you can almost tell that, like, you know, you have reached the top. But I think it's going to get way more ridiculous than now.
I'm excited. Yes, let's hope so. I mean, that's the dream, and that's really good. And along with that, during, like, especially in the last bull market, and as the bull markets go, a lot of people do become quite wealthy due to their belief in crypto. And a big thing was the crypto Lambo. You know, you go and you buy a Lamborghini because you have the money from your belief. And you mentioned Elon Musk. You know, he fluctuates, but around the world's richest man usually. And he announced that not only did Tesla invest or buy a Bitcoin, but they also are going to accept, or sometime in the future, Bitcoin as a payment for Teslas. Do you think that the crypto Tesla would be the new crypto Lambo?
Yeah, I mean, Elon has just made that happen, definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, so do you think though that maybe we could, if Elon's he's so receptive and so understanding and supportive of the community, do you think we could convince him to implement a DAO somehow in the Tesla infrastructure?
I think not even Tesla. I think probably Mars. Like that is the main thing. Like you think about like Mars and the fact that you know, it is very possible that he's going to be kind of like commanding the first like human expedition into there and kind of like just conquering Mars for humankind. Like I like Elon a lot, but we cannot have one dictator. We cannot have one company rule Mars. Like that's a whole planet. We need some kind of like community ownership there, and I think a DAO just fits very well in there.
That's a wonderful idea. The Mars DAO, which would, because we're essentially starting from scratch, that would be the first governance organization on Mars to be a DAO. What steps are you doing to make this happen? Because I want to make this happen. Is Aragon's infrastructure in place that would work? How would that work though with a network? Because it does require a network effect. Would it have to be a local network on Mars?
That's a problem. Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about this, and it is very challenging to like get a blockchain to run on both like Earth and Mars, because you have huge latency of communications and bandwidth problems. And so like, unless you have like a huge block time, like, you know, you like reach consensus on a block each week or something. I haven't run the math, but like it is really hard. So I guess you might have your own like local Mars blockchain. But yeah, this is still like very, very experimental research, but it's just lovely to think about it. Like, you know, I think like having these utopian dreams again is something that will help like our generation kind of like have more dreams about the future and what technology can enable, and not the state of mind right now, which is quite pessimistic with the pandemic and with like social networks screwing the world and social behavior and politicians being crooked. It's kind of like a very bad panorama. So I think we need to improve and dream again.
Well, you know, with the DAO, in terms of block finality, what's the shortest time it needs to be? Can you essentially just have the block every time there is a vote? I mean, couldn't you essentially work with a block every once a week, as long as that vote is held within that week? And could that work?
Yeah, I mean, you can construct like you can construct a lot of systems to optimize for like that latency issue. Which is something that like I actually think if we got Elon into it, he would probably figure it out. Like I can't think of anyone better actually to think through
he already shoots the satellites in the space. He already has the Starlink where I'm assuming he's going to continue to build a better connection, internet connection to Mars, whether it be, I mean, it's going to be a long chain of satellites, but he'll figure it out.
Yeah, he figured it out for sure. You threw a problem to him, he figured it out.
Right. So I think that the best thing to get him to go for, because already the Tesla onboard computer is quite powerful. In terms of a car, it is tremendously powerful. You're able to even play AAA games on it. You can play The Witcher 3, and it's very powerful. Can we see him maybe getting some native support for either running a node, a blockchain node? I mean, we've seen people hack it, but maybe some native support for running a blockchain node or participating in other blockchain protocols?
Actually, I mean, if you think about like the idea of like Tesla's been able to like produce kind of like passive income for the owners and like, you know, be like Uber or taxis and just like move around and serve that purpose to generate some income. Like you can also have like a staking nodes, right? So maybe.
All right, very cool. And I'm assuming there's two people I trust with this project. It's Elon Musk and you, because I love your philosophy and outlook on things, and two, I know that based off your past accomplishments, I know that you are capable of doing it. Luis, it's really a pleasure speaking to you. I appreciate both your outlook and all the work you're doing in the space, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. We're running out of time on our interview. I'll leave the floor to you. This is your opportunity to either highlight a project that you like, highlight something that Aragon themselves are doing, or just give a shout out to a friend or family, whoever you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing I want to like just highlight is that we are close to launching our own DAO. And so basically the idea is to just decentralize the development of Aragon itself and move forward. And for that, we need people who like want to dream about, you know, a bunch of things like governance, new nation states, like all of those things. So if you're one of those, head over to aragon.chat and let's make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you. It's a wonderful cause. If you want, go over to Aragon.chat and then possibly be the one to develop the first DAO on Mars. You heard it here first. Luis, thank you so much for joining us and explaining it. I look forward to being your neighbor on the Red Planet. And for all of our viewers here at Reimagine 2021, I'm Yonah Hochhauser. Thanks for watching.